by Elfinout. Take it away.
What is up, everyone? As Kung Fu said so eloquently, I am Elfinout, and this is Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, and we are going to waste absolutely no time here and get right into it. Timer is going to start on difficulty select, so I'll give you a short countdown. In 3, 2, 1, let's get it going. I am joined today by the legendary commentator, PND Ketchup, who is going to take it away with the majority of the commentary for this run. So, Ketchup, feel free.
Thank you very much. It's an honor, absolute honor. Beloved game is Shaolin Monks, and anyone that played Mortal Kombat growing up probably played this, maybe in the co-op, which is my personal favorite section, but this run is very, very different. Already, we're going to see an out of bounds, just going under the floor, and this is something that Kung Lao is able to do, so a nice spaced medium. Bit tricky to get the timing for. And there we go. Looks like we've been able to get under there pretty much straight away. And this technique is known as infini kicking. Basically, the short of it, it's a bit technical, but by pressing select after a jump in, essentially resets the cooldown and allows you to do it again. Kung Lao's jumping medium just so happens to move him forward and gain height. So using this technique will allow him to essentially fly around the game. Elfinout wasn't lying when he said that during the interview. Going out of bounds can come down to a well-timed heavy punch as well, which will kind of sink you through the floor. So kind of putting the two together allows you to progress much faster than you otherwise would. We're going to go right through these spikes, and the Infinity Kicking comes out again for another skip. This is going to be used to skip a couple of cutscenes, the one with Johnny Cage, and unfortunately the one with Reptile. So sorry, Reptile fans, we're not going to be seeing him on this run. But, you know, play the game, you'll see it. It's a great game. And we're talking about skips. Another skip is going to be coming out in the first fatality room. Normally, you're supposed to pick up this little fatality icon, do your first one, the door opens. As you can probably guess, we're not going to do that. We're going to do a jumping medium, we're going to sink through the floor, and we're going to fly through the floor into the loading zone, and we're just going to skip the room outright. And this is just one of the biggest sections, really, within the start of the game. We're going to enter the loading zone. I can see a little bit of nerves there. Elfinout, you mentioned that the real hardware does bring its difficulties.
It really does. Fatality skip can be a little bit fickle, but it's treating us nicely so far.
Speaking of which, this is one of the only rooms that we do normally. You just pick up an Oni and throw him into the wall. If he plays ball, he'll run into you straight away. Now, this next room is the first kind of boss slash sub-boss. The Oni General, Oni Warlord, can't quite remember the name. This is normally the section of the game where you get access to the long jump. And it's a huge part of the game. It's kind of instrumental to moving on and getting through all the different areas. We don't need to do that in this run, so we're going to skip this boss by just using the flight, as it were, to go straight across the bridge. It does involve skipping long jump, though, so we're not going to have that during this run, but Elfinout's not going to need it. We're now going to take out these two palace guards, and that's pretty much going to be Goro's lair. I mean, beaten in considerably fast time, and just like that, we're moving into Wuxi 1. This is kind of the last area of the game that we're going to be beating things in the order that is originally intended, right?
Yes. So Wuxi, Goro's lair in Wuxi, there's not much we can do to really circumvent it. But after we get out of Wuxi, we'll enter what's called like the portal hub, and that's where we really start breaking the sequencing of the game.
So there's going to be a bit of concentration here. Elfinout needs to skip this entire section, and because it is going to be the same thing for about a minute, good time for donations, I think.
Sure, no problem. Oh, this is fascinating to watch. Okay. All right, so we have $25 from Doodle Co, who says, more GDQ, please. We also have $25 from Alex and Kay, who says, hi, AGDQ. This time last year, we were watching AGDQ and my fiance's water broke. He spent the night at the hospital and spent the little downtime we had watching the runs. Now we're here with our 1-year-old watching all the amazing runs. We consider the event part of the family. Thanks so much for the amazing spectacle with such a good cause. Alex and Kay.
You'll have time for one more.
All right, no problem. We also have $50 from Crystalus X, who says, go team, go! Go team, go!
And thank you very much for that. We're going to be jumping into the next section of the game. And there's a bit more concentration than you might expect. Just because it's a monotonous timing, it's repetitive, but you have to keep it up for the entire section. Now, this section, Johnny Cage, of all people, tends to be the biggest obstruction. He has to fight 2 Tarkatans and can send them in a variety of directions, we'll say. If he just so happens to knock them into you when you're trying to go for an out of bounds, it slows you down. So some would say he's going to be the biggest obstacle. We'll see if Johnny Cage is going to play ball, but you know what? It's a very Cage thing to do. And where's it going to go? A bit distracted, perhaps? I think we might be okay. Have to get that out of bounds. Again, the timing a little bit finicky.
And we're good.
Even after having all this practice, but you got it, man. Good to go. And this trick will skip the entirety of the Wuxi Academy. Normally, you've got to put out some fires. You've got to do a variety of little mini games. This bypasses the entire thing. You haven't even got to wait for Cage to sort of open the gate. You haven't got to cut down those big sort of vials with the weapon. All of that is skipped. And speaking of skipped, we're going to use the Infinity Kicking again to sort of just bypass a little section. I think for a lot of people, this is the first real skip that some people might learn and do, because it's not huge in terms of like how it's executed, but it's significant enough to skip this next section. So normally you're supposed to throw one of these Palace Guard into a spike, jump on them, and that's it. But as you can probably assume, Elfinout's not going to do that because he's just going to fly over with the Infinity Kick. And now we're going into Outworld. This is, as Elfinout stated, the hub of the world. The objective of the game normally is to go to various different areas, fight all kinds of different bosses, right? You know, Scorpion, Kitana, Reptile, Baraka. You just have to get through all of these, and then you get medallions. The medallions allow you to progress, and then ultimately, once you've got every medallion, you can go into the final section of the game. But thanks to Out of Bounds, and Kung Lao in particular, really has to be stated that Kung Lao kind of is the character that he's the perfect character to use for this run, because his moveset just naturally allows him to skip as much as can be skipped. And at the same time, you know, even his running slide, you know, being able to run and slide and gain extra speed that way, it all kind of works together to just lead into a character that does it the best. And that's it. For this run in particular. Now here comes that skip. This is the Amulet Door, or medallion, I suppose. And we're now going to skip this completely.
Maybe,
however,
if I can get it.
Yeah, it's the timing. I'll let you concentrate.
This is probably one of the trickier parts. A lot of the undermapping can be really helped along with certain geometry. And as you can tell, this wall is kind of blocky. So it really depends on if it wants to push Kung Lao back above the ground or if it wants to help him and push him a little bit below. But luckily, it didn't take too long for us to get under there.
No, it was good stuff. And that trick, it's really not as easy as it looks. I think that really has to be stated. You know, it kind of looks a little bit simple, right? You know, do the medium, fall through the floor. I wish it was, and I'm sure we all wish it was. But it's not quite. This is the final section of the game, both, you know, in any percent and when you play it casually. The Foundry normally requires you to put together a axe, and that axe is used to destroy 2 crystals. Unlike everything else in this any percent run, though, we have to do it the intended way. Sort of. We're still going to be using a little bit of Out of Bounds, but we still need to get the axe because we have to destroy the crystals. I'll tell you why in a little bit. Now, with Test Your Might, the game says to mash X and press L1. I can see Elfinout smiling because that's a lie. You can press all of your face buttons and build the meter up much faster. And you can even press R1, so you can see Elfinout clawing the controller, kind of like a claw grip. Really lets you mash all of the buttons as fast as you can, and then you can press R1. Speaking of which, here we go again. Build up the meter much faster. If you ever played this when you were younger and you were thinking, I could not build this up, I really struggled on these sections, there you go. There's the secrets revealed right there. But as we move on to the next section and we talk about kind of needing to get this axe, the reason for it is the door at the end that brings you into the boss area is unique, because the actual loading zone that will allow you to move on to the next room, it actually doesn't appear until the enemies that spawned have disappeared. So you have to destroy the crystals to get the enemies to spawn and then get the door to open up for you. But this is a rather tricky section. We have to do a couple of these now. The Out of Bounds is still necessary because we just don't have any of the medallion abilities, as it were. The stuff that you get during, whether it's a boss fight or a different section of the game. Really well placed. Really, really well placed. And as you can see, Elfinout's using the map as well. When you're doing out of bounds as often as we're having to do in this run, that map comes in as a complete lifesaver. Doesn't always play ball, but when it does, it's exactly what you need. The final test your might, and this is going to unlock the axe that we need to get to the end of the game. And here we go once more. Smash!
Almost got a 6 there.
Yeah, almost. Normally through the foundry, we get to see the creation of this axe. Turns out it was a lie all along. The axe was just here, waiting. They were just giving us the runaround, they were. Doing a little bit of preemptive instant jump heavies. I'm not going to say why. I think we'll save that for about a minute or so.
Yeah, just warming it up. We'll keep it a surprise, though.
Oh, it's great. It's absolutely fantastic. But in this next area, now we have the axe. We can essentially destroy the 2 crystals, get the final set of enemies to spawn. This is kind of the only bit of real combat we do before the boss fight. And it's because we have to do it. Otherwise, the door doesn't open, and then the loading zone obviously doesn't appear. That's the big one. It's the zone that lets you move on to the next run. We can only engage that by taking out the enemies. Now, there is going to be a little bit of optimization to this enemy fight. The biggest thing about it is we essentially need to get the enemies' bits and pieces to disappear. I say that very specifically because we are going to be chopping them up in a little bit. It's not about killing the enemies, it's just making them vanish. And the second they vanished, that is when things open up and we can move on. Air combat, knocking enemies into the air, is the fastest way to get these things to vanish. As you'll probably see here, we're going to do good damage. We're going to break some of these enemies up, and their body parts have already disappeared. There's really no subtle way of saying it. It is a Mortal Kombat game after all. And as soon as all these enemies are taken out, if they play ball, none of them catch us in the middle of combat too much. Looks like things have gone pretty smooth here. We're going to get hit once, but not the end of the world. And just like that, kind of smooth, man. Well done.
Thank you. Yeah, that room has a few different ways it can go. Depending on how the enemies want to play ball, they can either group up really nicely or they can do their super long charge attacks. They played ball there, so I'm pretty happy with that.
We are about to enter, I think, the most infamous part of the game. I mean, I love it. I think so many of us love it, but probably the hardest part in the game without question. It's the boss rush. Boss rush. It's not even that late here in the UK. I don't even have that excuse. It's much later for you than it is for me, my friend. But this is a hard part of the game, right? You've got to fight all 3 final bosses back to back with the same health bar. And if at any point you lose, you have to start the boss rush all over again. So casual players and speedrunners alike, this is a rather scary part of the game. But in the meantime, what Elfinout is currently doing is preventing a bug. Unfortunately, with Kung Lao in particular, if you go straight into the boss rush, it freezes before Shao Kahn. You have to save and quit and load back in. There's going to be some downtime here, so a perfect time for a couple of donations.
No problem. We have $25 from Cyborg Kung Lao, who says, thanks for an amazing event. Keep flipping. There's been a lot of flipping in this run. It's great. We also have $200 from Steven, who says, I watch this event every year for the past 3 years. And since it's payday, finally my turn to donate to such a great event and charity.
Thank you very much for your generosity, everyone. I mean, the entire marathon long, an absolutely wonderful experience. You know, we're both extremely proud to be here and giving Mortal Kombat that representation in the speedrunning sense. There's a wonderful community for all the different games. It's not just the spin-offs, it's the regular arcade games as well, the console games. But enough talk. It's time now for the first boss fight, Shang Tsung. A little bit of concentration is going to be needed here. The instant jump heavy. This is used to essentially stun lock Shang Tsung. Normally, bosses have built-in combo breakers, but jumping heavy they don't. Unfortunately, drops it, but it is a little bit tricky here. Able to start things off once again. The key is you want to prevent Shang Tsung from morphing. And that's why Elfinout started off with a teleport, kind of confused the AI and was able to get a knockdown. It's basically the most consistent way to stop Shang Tsung from changing into someone of which he takes more damage, and that really is just the short of it. little bit more to go. And this is one of the sections.
Oh, no. We're just buying time. It's okay.
You just got to make it close, man. You can't make it look too easy.
Yeah, I can't give, everyone the perfect run. We got incentives to meet.
Oh yeah, of course. We just got to make things a little bit close. Now, here comes an actual fatality. Haven't really seen any of those in the run so far, but they are necessary. But I mean, like that trick in particular, being able to get it, I think really it's the monotonous timing, isn't it, that can really screw with you a little bit.
Yeah, the timing, kind of like Infinikicks, it's just, if you think about it too much, you're going to kind of screw it up. And real hardware is a little bit clunkier than emulators, so sometimes it hitches. But yeah, it's just really a rhythm thing.
Speaking of which, the next boss fight comes out.
Oh, you.
Yeah, it just comes down to whether the bosses are going to play ball and go with good patterns, really. And then with Kintaro and Shao Kahn, specific attacks can kind of keep them somewhat stun locked. And if you can pick up on what the attack pattern is, you can really shred. In this case, the spin's coming out, but you can't do a spin forever. You need to regenerate some of that meter. But keeping your health as high as it can be as we go into Shao Kahn, I think that's going to be one of the priorities here, and currently being played incredibly well, because Kintaro does so much more damage than you might expect. I mean, he is the second to final boss for a reason, but this has been a relatively smooth Kintaro fight, and that's going to allow us to be much healthier as we go into Shao Kahn. And I'm not even talking about phase 1, that phase 2. The helmet comes off and the hammer comes out. That's the scariest part of the entire game, and of course it would be right at the end of the run. So we're going to give that support in chat.
Midway, if you've ever played, anyone in chat, if you've ever played, especially like the old school retro titles, you'll know how much Midway loved their endurance matches, and they held absolutely 0 bars with this one. Shao Kahn is as much a boss in this game as expected in any other. He is a menace.
I would certainly go as far to say this has got to be the hardest Shao Kahn. Like, it really is. Even if you know how to exploit him, he still does so much damage, and the consequences for losing is so high. So, similar to Kintaro, we're going to try and get a good pattern here.
Oh, come on now.
Avoid taking damage. He does have a chance to taunt and do all these different attacks, but if we can keep him stunned and locked in, we get into that 50% threshold, and it is going to engage phase 2, which is definitely the scarier part of the game. He pulls out a hammer, he starts doing massive damage. Nice bit of optimization, and we're doing damage and healing at the same time. Love to see it. Good luck, mate. Now, if we can do as much damage as possible before he enters his hammer spin, it's a 13-second timer before he starts to spin. So if you can do as much damage as possible here, gives you less work to do when he ultimately misses, and then you can hit him for free. Lovely timing there on the jump in. Time is coming up very, very soon. It's when that final fatality comes through. Time
will be on the last fatality input. So here in just a couple seconds. And that's time.
Wonderful run, mate.
Whew.
Wonderful run. And I think
that is Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks.
Well done. This is your moment, of course, though. Give any shout-outs, thanks, and I appreciate everyone. Thank you so much. Peace out.
My first shout out, of course, has got to go to the legendary commentator, PND Ketchup. It was an honor to have you on the couch. Second goes out to, of course, GDQ. Thank you for having us. This was a phenomenal big screen debut again for Mortal Kombat. And if you're interested in Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks or Mortal Kombat in general, we have a general community Discord that I cannot recommend enough. We do everything from old school retro to the newest titles. Every game has something for someone, and we are, I'm biased, but in my opinion, one of the most welcoming communities. So feel free to come on in, ask any questions. We'd love to have you, and thank y'all for an incredible event. That was a bucket list item checked.
All right, another awesome run under our belts during this marathon. Congrats again to Elfinout. You did an awesome job with this Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks run. Alrighty, I'm about to head out, you all, but I want to leave you all with one more donation. We have $25 from Kitsumi, who says, why do cats love video games? Because they have 9 lives. Let's see kitties in their glory. Donation train anyone here. Donation train anyone. Here's 5 to get it purring along. Just want to thank you all for letting me spend some more time with you this evening. You can catch me tomorrow doing some interview things with the rest of my team. But hosting is such a pleasure. And I'll be back with you all hosting later on this week as well. So please have a fantastic rest of your night/morning watching these amazing runs. Next up, we have Fez. It's going to be incredible. Plus, we have the one and only Prolix coming on to be hosting after me. So you really can't go wrong. It's going to be a lovely morning. Hope you all enjoy. Take care, and I will see you soon. We'll be right back after a break.
Yeah, hello, everyone, and welcome back to Awesome Games Done Quick Online 2023. I am your host, Prolix, and I'll be with you for the next several runs. We're live here, powered by Twitch and going fast all week long, raising money for the Prevent Cancer Foundation. If you're just tuning in, up next we have an any% run of Fez by T. Hirsch III. After that, it'll be Sutahaken by Junkyard Dave. And on deck, we've got Vampire Knight by Boix. For Fez, we have a donation incentive that has already been met to play as Sonic. So thank you all very much for donating toward that. That means this game has already raised $6,000 for our featured charity. Much appreciated. However, I need to let you know about incentives that are still open too, and we have one coming up in just a couple of runs here. That's for Vampire Knight. Don't forget there's an incentive open right now to watch the cutscenes. And currently, we are at $2,685 needed out of $3,000 to watch those cutscenes. So if you'd like to see that additional content, you need to go to gamesdonequick.com/donate right now and get your money in. When you enter a donation to PCF, there'll be a little spot at the bottom of the form saying, would you like to add an incentive? Say yes to that and choose the Vampire Knight. Watch the cutscene incentives. We will only be watching those cutscenes if the goal amount is met. So get your money in now while you have a chance. If you haven't donated yet this event, the minimum donation amount is only $5. So if just a few of you out there within the sound of my voice can donate that, we'll meet that goal in no time. And if you've already donated before, feel free to consider another one. We'd appreciate it. Check the budget, see if it'll work for you. And I just want to keep everyone aware of that. Meanwhile, while we wait for the next run to begin, I'll read some comments from your donations that have already been submitted. I have here first a $250 donation from Anonymous. Thank you so much for your generosity on that one. Also have $250 from Radio 47 Fool, who says, we want to see more AGDQ, more FF7. Let's